Welcome back, everybody. Today we are going to be, I want to say closing out, but I'm sure that we'll see it on the bench. After this, we're going to be finishing our review of the Viotek, and I have to read this off, the GFI27DBXA, which is a 27-inch 1440p G-Sync compatible IPS 180Hz 1 millisecond response time gaming monster. And everyone that I've let interact with this panel is immediately impressed with it. So I just want to say that. So we've got one of our HC V160s over here to my left, directly in front of the screen, recording it in like I guess we'll call it a chase cam position. We've got our main 4K camera, unfortunately not really catching as much as I would like. It's really just keeping my audio and video in sync with everything else. And I've got the Zotac 1650 that I'm going to say reviewed last year. We used it in our retro, well, not retro, but our office PC gaming upgrade. Still an excellent card, and honestly, if it didn't cost as much as it does now, I'd say it's not a bad deal. And the reason I say that is because I checked Amazon earlier this week, and it was like $500. I paid $170-ish for it. And I thought that was high, but fair for a low-profile card, since it was kind of a niche part. Like, other 1650s were $25 to $50 cheaper, depending on model. But anyway, I digress. We've got our Spider 4 Elite here on the bench, so that I can calibrate the monitor. And by the way, I just want to say, Spider Studio, or Data Color, I guess, get your act together. I accidentally downloaded the Spider Pro software before, and it wouldn't activate with the key that I have for my Spider Elite device. The installer is the same exact size, byte for byte. So as near as I'm going to guess, the only difference between the two for what's physically present is going to be what features are activated. Like, you just built one installer and labeled it differently. Just have one installer and activate the features based on the key. There's no reason to have 4 different installers for this thing. Okay, but that's enough of me ranting, so let's go ahead and calibrate it first. And while I'm waiting for that to light up, so it is warmed up. There is intense light directly on it, but only in the corners, which I apologize if all of this is a little dimmer than normal. I've got my studio lights turned out as far as I can to try and keep any glare off the screen. And for the sake of it, we're going to reset it just to default so that it's happy. And then, alright, so that's my display controls taken care of. The Spider's plugged directly into the computer. We are dealing with a LCD, which is just showing up as generic plug-and-play monitor. That's fine. And we're going to name it, and this is going to be that GFI27DBXA. Since this is HDR, it's wide gamut. I believe we've got white LEDs. So we only have a brightness control enabled right now, which is fine. 6500 Kelvin. I want to see if we can calibrate the brightness to 200. A little bit brighter, make it pop a little more. So I should only have to nudge that a little. Oh, a little more than I thought. 202. I bet we can hit 200 on the nose. There we go. Have I mentioned before that this is a tedious process? Okay. No, we don't want calibration reminders. All right, 100% sRGB, 96% NTSC, and 100% Adobe RGB. Honestly, that is the widest color gamut that I have seen. I don't even think my editing panels, which are some older, granted, older, Dell Ultra Sharps, hit that 100% Adobe RGB. They come up close. I think they're in the 80s or so. But, wow. All right, so... No, I don't want to run any of the advanced analysis. Color-wise, this thing's beautiful. And I know this calibrated look is a little bit, how do I want to put this? Toned down compared to its default color profile. It's not quite as bright, but it's also more accurate, and that's what I'm generally looking for. So let's go ahead and check it for color shift. None. And the other way, absolutely nothing. No, the viewing angles on this are fantastic. I think you would have to intentionally put yourself in a bad viewing situation. And I mean, I don't know, if I turn it this way and look at about 178 degrees, or just shy of a full 180 degrees, I can still see what's on the panel, but I'm at such an oblique angle that I'm actually just getting more of the reflection off this not quite matte, not quite gloss screen than I am what's on the screen itself. If I cut my studio lights so that I wasn't getting all of that glare, at just shy of 180 degrees, I can't quite read what I'm looking at, but everything is still color accurate, as it were. All right, let's... I just noticed some flicker on my Panasonic camera. I hope that's not coming through the record. All right, so that's fantastic. So now let's go ahead and go to the Nvidia control panel. And I'm just going to shift it to this side of the screen. Set up G-Sync. Enable G-Sync, enable for windowed and full screen mode. Select the panel, enable the settings, apply. There we go. We should have G-Sync enabled. And for the sake of it, let's try Minecraft first. Just because I think that's one we can run at the native resolution pretty easily, since we do have this 1650 Ti, and I think we'll hit native res. Plus it's got a built-in frame counter where I can see what frame rate it's looking at and just run around and poke at a few things. Just spin up a yeah, we'll use that world I generated to see what the CPU could do. All right, so running at 180 frames per second out of the gate doesn't quite. Okay. Well, huh. That's actually, it's kind of amazing that we can still push it down to 60 with everything enabled at 2560 by 1440. What is causing the frame rate to drop? Oh, I bumped the view distance. So it's loading some stuff that's really far away. Yeah. Okay. Not seeing any tearing or any jerkiness, and that was something that I normally would see when we have massive frame rate swings. So as far as I'm concerned, that seems to show me that G-Sync is running. Let's try something a little more, I don't know, exciting. Alright, so we're going to do something a little different than we normally would to represent a first-person shooter. Normally I would use the original Borderlands. However, in a little bit of playing, I had a hard time getting that to, how do I want to phrase this? Run at a varied enough frame rate that I actually thought it was a good enough demonstration of G-Sync. So we're going to fire up Borderlands 2 and tweak its video settings. The original Borderlands is just we'll enable it. Okay. So we'll just continue this. The original Borderlands is just not quite up to the task. Looks like I had this turned all the way down to like 640, 480, trying to 1024, 768. There we go. Apply that. And did I just crash it? I think I did. That's not cool. Alright, so we're going to have to relaunch that. We're also going to open Afterburner because I want the on-screen display. So let's try that one more time. Alright, so VSync, unlimited frame rate, 2560 by 1440. Apply. Let's just double check those held. And yeah, that ought to be punishing enough. This actually does demonstrate one of the few, I guess, missing features on this panel, if you even want to call it that. The lack of built-in speakers means that I don't have any audio to hear right now. Alright, so yeah, 143, 166, 119. So our frame rate is bouncing all over. And yeah. I'm supposed to go get Claptrap's eye. I guess I should at least find something to shoot at. This all looks good. This all looks clear. The color and details good. It's as sharp as it's going to be for the graphics settings that are used. I should see if I can find some ammo. Throw out a bunch of dead claptraps at me? Okay. Yep, that'll do. I don't know about everyone else. I like to snipe things. I also like to have plenty of ammo. There's Claptrap. Yeah, this is really nice. We're running at the full native resolution. It looks like the frame rate's kind of in the 90s, but it's behaving as fluid as anything else. It's pretty fantastic. And if I recall, for this particular scenario, it was kind of to my favor to pick off a few of these now. was not according to plan. But it seems to have worked out. Yeah. Alright, so Minecraft, our little sandbox game, perfectly fine. Borderlands 2 here, not bad. Really impressed with that 11600K actually. This is running at 100 frames a second and the CPU just doesn't seem to care. It's at like 15%. The 1650 is kind of screaming its heart out here. I'm sure you can hear it on camera. But we're not here to review it. And it's not really a 1440p gaming card in the first place. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and hit Ufo Test. And we're going to do a couple of tests. And yeah, that looks fantastic. Let's go ahead and just try a couple of the other tests here. That is kind of freaky because I've definitely seen that kind of 30 frame a second animation before, and I think the one that someone asked us to test last time was this ghosting. Okay. Let's go ahead and... I'm not seeing any. I don't know if the camera's picking any up, but if there's any visible ghosting, I can't see it while this is running, which is fantastic. Let's go ahead. Yeah, all of these. All right, so we're going to hear from Jordan, and then we're going to come back and close everything out.
Hey guys, my name's Jay Squibb, and I stream on Twitch, and every once in a while my buddy who reviews stuff throws me a bone and lets me review some of the things that he's currently reviewing. And luckily this time, he let me review the Viotek GFI27DBXA. And what I've been calling it is just simply the Viotek panel when I've talked to all my friends about this, because I can't stop talking about how great this monitor is for how cheap it is. Some of the features that come with this that were just from the get-go very exciting for me were the 1 ms response time. Goes up to 180 hertz on the refresh rate, and in general, or the main thing I guess, is the price point. When my friend told me that this thing was around $300, sometimes less, sometimes a little more, just depending on the market, I was like, there's just no way, because normally you would have to pay $500, $600 for equivalent or similar results with a monitor. Some of the games that I played with this monitor were Overwatch, Apex Legends, Deep Rock Galactic, Dead Cells, Factorio, World of Warcraft, Days Gone, Final Fantasy XIV. I mean, so you can see I tried a bunch of different games that would test this thing out for like tearing or any sort of like desyncing type things. I experienced none of that. The game that really stood out to me, actually, that's pretty random, is a hunting game called The Hunter Call the Wild. When I plugged this monitor in, that was the first game I wanted to see on here, just because I was blown away by the color profile. Once I set it up, I should say. It wasn't calibrated for my specifications right out of the box. I had to play with it a little bit, but it really wasn't that difficult. The buttons on the monitor are very responsive. But anyways, playing The Hunter Call the Wild in this monitor was wild. Like, so incredible. I could see things a little bit clearer than I normally could. It's not like it was like a night and day crazy thing, but it was enough that I noticed it pretty quickly. I would say some of the other kind of cool features this thing came with is this actually had a setting that came with a like 4, 5, 6 preset crosshairs that will just stay permanently on the middle of your screen, which is kind of cool. 'Cause, there's plenty of games where we wish we could just aim down or hip fire better, or aim down the sights a little faster without having to try to use your guns, iron sights that might not be great, like in a Tarkov or Fortnite or something. So that was kind of cool. I'll jump into some of the cons real quick. For me, the shape of the base was a little bizarre. Just because as a streamer, I have like a stream deck and a mixer and a couple other things that are normally in front of my mouse pad and keyboard. And because this monitor base is so wide and it's in like a V shape, it kind of messed with the setup a little bit that I had. I was able to work around it. It wasn't the end of the world, but just like, like little nitpicky thing. But I will say the actual pivot or tilt and panning that you could do with the base with the monitor is very impressive. It was really cool. If I wanted to show my wife something, I could easily swivel this thing, and I mean it swivels pretty far. So I thought that was kind of cool. Other than that, in terms of cons, I didn't really have too many. Maybe like a small gripe would just be that I had to calibrate it for my specifications, and it wasn't just an easy plug and play right out of the box. But not the end of the world. Let's say overall, this thing has been amazing. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm actually thinking about buying one myself because I was such a fan. So it's pretty cool. I have to say it's the best bang for your buck right now, as far as I'm aware. And yeah, hopefully this helped you decide a little bit. And like I said, my name is Jay Squibb. I stream on Twitch. Feel free to check me out. You can actually come ask me questions if I didn't answer something that you wanted to know. And I'd be happy to see you. Anyways, yeah, thanks. Take it easy, guys.
All right, so let's go ahead and throw some color bars on here while we talk about this. And we'll use, I don't know, this one. Oh, come on. Nope. So we've got a panel here with a mouthful of a name. The Viotek GFI27DBXA, which I just rattled off by memory. So if I missed a letter, I'm going to have to apologize. And it basically does everything that I could ask a mid-range IPS panel to do. What's good, what's bad? So what's good is all the performance numbers are fantastic. The color accuracy is good. The blur, the response time, the actual feel in game, the G-Sync functionality, all works. And when I calibrated it, we hit 100% Adobe RGB, which is fantastic. At about $300, we have a solid panel with picture by picture support. That's really easy to do. It's right in here. They call it multi-window. So we can do picture with whatever input we want, and we can do picture by picture with up to 3 inputs. I know that doesn't sound like that amazing of a feature, but I use that all the time. So my bigger panel, my 4K panel on my desk, supports the same function, and very often I will attach a PC to an HDMI loop through and then send the record to my desktop and throw a system that I'm recording in a corner. So I can see live right away what's happening, I can interact with the system the way I want, and I can also see the record happening in real time on the other system, all on one panel. Are there other reasons to use picture in picture and picture by picture? Absolutely. I've seen people use it to simulate 4 separate physical monitors on a single screen, and a variety of other niche use cases. It's a good feature. Is it going to be a make or break feature for 90% of you? Probably not, but I would be remiss to not mention it. Alright, so who is this panel for? Well, we have a 180 Hz wide color gamut IPS panel with a good stand. Not a great stand, but a good one. And I'll comment on that in a moment. Overall, this is going to make a lot of people happy. And who it ends up being for really is anyone who does more than one thing, or anyone who has to do that one thing and hit a certain budget is going to appreciate this panel. And what I mean by that is it's not the absolute highest refresh rate panel. But it's 180 hertz. I mean, you can get 240s and 360s. If you make your money as a streamer or as a competitive gamer, and you find that a 240 hertz panel gives you an advantage, well, good for you, but this isn't going to meet that criteria. At 180 hertz, it's still more than 120 and 144. And with G-Sync support, I think it's fantastic. But there's a few edge cases out there where people want 240 or even 360 now. If you are someone who depends on color accurate work, this panel, once calibrated, hit 100% Adobe RGB, hit 100% sRGB, and was 90 plus for NTSC. That's fantastic. But, and partly because my calibrator's old, I didn't test the Rec 2020 space. I don't think it would hit 100% Rec 2020. And if you were making content that depends on that color space, you're going to need a more expensive panel. For what we do here, we deliver content on YouTube. We're not a major motion picture studio. 100% Adobe RGB is better than what I normally have. I normally just have 100% sRGB, which was what you got out of a IPS panel just a few years ago, and that was good. So at $300 to deliver a good frame rate and a good resolution and a good color space response, or color space I should say, color profile, there we go, there's the term that I wanted. Well, it's going to make people who aren't major motion picture studios happy. It's going to make anyone who maybe they were happy at 144 hertz, but they wanted something bigger or higher resolution or with better color. Great, this is going to fit their needs. It's going to make anyone who does video edit work and streams and plays competitive games really happy. I mean, it's mixing both of those, and it's hitting both of those at a feature set and a price point that is fantastic. If I needed to buy a monitor for the graphics people that I work with day to day, this would probably be on the short list. There'd be a couple of 4K options if I could convince someone to spend the money on it, but for $300 I would be hard pressed to find a better option than this with all those features. I mean, there are a couple of 60 Hz IPS panels that might get me more color space, but depending on what content you're working with and delivering, that's a trade-off to be considered. Now, I mentioned that the stand was good but not great. And let's see here. No, I can't widen it, but we can bring this down. So we've got these two legs that stick out. And overall, this is a good stand. I have height adjust, I have tilt and rotate, and all the freedom that I could normally ask for out of a 27-inch panel. However, there's a cost, and the cost is that these, although functional, kind of intrude onto the space in front of the panel a bit more than some people would like. And I honestly didn't notice that at first when I unboxed it. So I unboxed it and I said, okay, this is great. I've got a stand that gives me tilt, turn, rotate, vertical height adjust, all the things that I want. With a nice cable management hole in it, this is good. And I gave it to Jordan, and he said, this is great, except the stand messes with where I want to put my Stream Deck and my mixer. And I hadn't considered that. And for some people, that is a legitimate thing. Now, I don't have a Stream Deck here in my studio. I've got this little number pad. So if I want to put something here, that leg gets in the way. So I can put a thing here, and I can put a thing there. But I have a restricted and oddly shaped, like, sort of triangle space in front of the monitor that I can use. And there's solutions to that. You can get a little platform and put it over the legs, just raise everything up half an inch, you're good to go. You can, for $30 or so, get a bracket and bolt it to the desk. And for some people, that will be a solution. I think that's the one Jordan discussed. For me, personally, I'm glad they included this stand, and I don't have an issue with the design. However, I fully understand the criticism that was aimed at it, and honestly, I think Viotek made the right call here. They included a good enough stand for about 90% of the users who are going to buy this panel, and a stand that I expect out of a $300 monitor. I got a new Dell UltraSharp at work the other day, and it came with a stand that had all the features that this one did. Now it had a different base. It had a square base. I think my PC just fell asleep. And that was what I expected. That was about a $300 monitor, and I expect a stand with height adjust, tilt, rotate, all of those things at that price point. Anyway, closing out, summing it all up, if you've just skipped forward through most of my rambling, I think they've got the right feature set at the right price point. There's a couple of small things to pick on. I mentioned that I didn't calibrate this against Rec 2020 or anything like that, because I expect $1,000 or $2,000 Asus ProArt panel to do those things. And you know what? If I've got a Hollywood budget, great. If I have a working man's budget, well, that's just not happening. Finally, I would like to thank Viotek for sending the panel in. I do want to disclose that this was sent in for review by the manufacturer. I want to thank anyone who helps support Pocketables, either by using our Amazon affiliate links or by supporting us on Patreon. It is support like that that helps make content like this possible. I want to thank Jordan for helping out. It's always nice to have a second opinion and a second set of eyes on something as technically complex as a monitor review. I hope many of you tuned in and asked him some questions live. If not, check him out on the stream, and I'm sure if you've got a question for him specifically, he'll be happy to. Otherwise, if you throw something in on the comments, I can always say, hey Jordan, somebody asked this, did you notice anything? I want to thank Electrix, as always, for providing our opening and closing themes. And finally, thank you for watching.